Okay, it is 5 past and time to get started as people start to I see the attendance rate starting to slow. So we'll go ahead and get started. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the August community call for the BAI project. A reminder that if you're not already part of our Discord channel or following us on GitHub, and any of the repos, that's a good way to keep up to date on what's happening, not just once a month at these community calls, but live as they happen. So I'll go ahead and put the link in the chat to the Discord if you're not already following us there. And Eden, if you don't mind putting the links to the GitHub repos as well in case people aren't following along. Awesome, thank you. Didn't have those freely available, and my second screen died this morning, so we're working off of one laptop right now. So this month we have some big announcements and changes, but we still want to make sure that we leave a lot of room for open discussion. So if you have a topic that you would like to talk about or discuss, feel free to put that in the chat and we'll try to get to it towards the end when we have some open Q&A time. I'm going to first kick us off with highlighting some of the wonderful community contributions that we've had this last month. And then we're going to go straight into some big announcements, and I'll hand that off to Kate and Tomas to talk about some protocol announcements and the platform. And then we will have Michael, John, Pavel, who are going to walk us through how they're actually using BAI in production at IBM. And then we'll hear some updates on the BAI framework from Tomas D. And again, then wrap it up with our open discussion and Q&A if anyone has a topic that they want to bring to the table or any questions at the end. So without further ado, I will get started. So give me a second because I'm on one screen here. Okay, going to share my screen. All right, can I get a thumbs up if you can see? Cool. All right. So first community contribution to review today. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here because it's his first week back at school and he got into the class he really wanted to. So I said I'd cover it for him, but he really wanted, I really wanted him to be here to show off his own project. So this is by Kenneth or Alex Jenkins, and he built during his internship, he's studying at Georgia Tech, and he built some really cool things with Granite, BAI, and Dockling, which are all open source projects from IBM Research. And so an overview of his project is he built this diagnostic tool for system admins and developers that do root cause analysis on Linux systems. So if you're struggling to read through your logs or things like that, this can help you diagnose errors, assess risk, and kind of triage that. And he made a CLI interface for it as well. And so it's a pretty cool project. I say if you are a system administrator or developer who reads through lots of logs and tries to diagnose their issues, this could be something that can help you, and it's completely open source. And so how he's using BAI here, if we scroll down to the architecture piece, sorry, lots of stuff. Okay, if we scroll down to the architecture piece, you can see that he's has his input sources. So he has log files, PDF docs, container logs, things like that. And he actually has these different modes that you can check. So you can do a quick analysis or a triage or a system scan where actually we'll scan through all the files on your system in a given folder. And then he's parsing things he uses Dockling for structured formats, and then he wrote his own parser for text or log formats. And then he collects all this context, right? Feeds it into BAI and uses that as the orchestration piece that calls the model and calls other tools that are needed. And yeah, so that is his Granite RCA project, which I thought was pretty cool. Here's some screenshots of how it looks when you use it in the terminal. All right. Now, the next contribution was also really great. So this is from Niram Codes, and he did a video on Agent Communication Protocol or ACP. And this also, although this one is specifically about ACP, and he walks through how to use ACP and how to make an agent ACP compatible, is also applicable for lots of the other protocols, as we'll hear on our announcement in just a moment. So those are the two community highlights for this month, and we'll post those in the Discord so you can check them out as well if you wanted to check out those two things. Cool. So with that, I will pass it first off to Kate to give some big protocol announcements.
Yes, and I just posted the link to the announcement. We put it as an announcement thread in the top level GitHub. But so kind of looking back on the journey of the Agent Communication Protocol, we launched it in March of this year as part of the existing BA project. The BA project at the time had just the framework, and we were launching a new platform level to explore agent interoperability, and ACP is what powered that. A month later, Google came out with A2A, and it was very immediately clear to us that we were thinking similarly about this layer of the generative AI stack, and we started working with them to see how we might get those efforts to align. Both efforts eventually came under open governance, so ACP did kind of right after it was invented, essentially, and A2A more recently, and we are officially merging the efforts and joining forces under the Linux Foundation. So we will be providing clear migration paths from everybody who has adopted ACP to A2A. There's a migration guide. I will link to that specifically in the chat. I am joining the technical steering committee of A2A on behalf of the BAI group and IBM's larger efforts. We're really excited to bring the assets and expertise that we developed with ACP into a single protocol, which I think will help everybody move faster rather than messing with the protocol soup, knowing where to go. It's also going to make things easier to secure, which is a really important aim that I know everybody working with these agents and thinking about them, especially in an enterprise or even just a production context, are thinking about. So we're very excited by this development. And thank you to everybody who gave feedback and contributed to the ACP. And we're excited to continue that journey with A2A.
Awesome. Thanks, Kate. And I think Tomas W., you're going to give us some platform updates, right? What does this mean for the BAI platform now?
Exactly. Thank you, Sandy. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. I'll just give you a brief update about the work we've done in past month, as well as what's coming next. Yeah, as mentioned, it is, spoiler alert, it's mostly about the A2A, but also some new cool stuff is coming to the platform as well. So let's start off with the major change, which is the A2A rewrite. Basically, what we did is make sure that every agent that is available in a platform is something we call A2A compliant agent, and that's basically A2A agent with a bit of sprinkle of like opinion about like how to do chat communication, for example, because A2A compared to ACP is less opinionated, and therefore, but since the platform is mostly about like GUI experience and the end user experience, we need to form a bit more of the opinion. So the key changes are that we migrated like basically everything into the A2A right now. So when you build the agent, then it has to be A2A agent. We also updated all the functionality we had so far, in which we implemented in ACP. So for example, things like trajectory or the sources and citations, support for LLMs and stuff like that. Everything like file support, for instance, everything you been used to working with the ACP is also available in the A2A version. What we did is try to keep the interface as similar to the ACP interface as it was possible, but unfortunately there are some very small nuance changes that obviously kind of causes like some breaking changes. So that's why we come up with the streamlined migration guide that Kate mentioned. So if you have your ACP agent, it should be relatively simple and straightforward for you to migrate to A2A. So this is about the A2A. But apart from working on A2A, we also added some more functionality to the platform. So one very user-facing feature right now is a rating system for responses of the agent in the user interface. So you can basically like thumbs up, thumbs down the specific agent responses. The data, the tracking information is gonna get stored into the database for now, but the goal is to make sure it's available in the GUI. So the agent builders, which will have much more prominent role in the future, because right now it's mostly about like local user, right? We're planning to extend that with different user accounts and roles. So the agent builders will be able to actually very easily see the feedback that user are providing to individual agent runs. So that's a new feature. Then apart from adding features like this, we also enhance the whole file support functionality with things like text extraction and basically when user wants to build or the agent builder wants to build an agent that is standard rack pipeline, then it's going to be super simple. We're still kind of lacking the documentation here, something that is in progress. We really want to focus on the documentation of that part. But there is already rack agent available in the list of out-of-the-box agents that you can draw a significant amount of inspiration from if you want to build your own. So that's a rack pipeline. Also, it's extremely important for us as most of the use cases revolve around that. Last but not least is something we call the concept of context. Basically, think of context as a conversation, because that's how it's typically called in A2A world. So we introduce the context as a first-class citizen of the platform. So basically, when you're creating a conversation, you are also creating a context, and that context can against that context, you can actually issue a token, which will grant you access to API, the platform API, things like accessing the files, or LLM providers, embeddings, and many others. So basically, everything can be treated as a resource right now, which has to be issued as through a token. So we can do some more granular resource isolation. For you as a consumer or agent builder, it is very easy because another thing that we've built is actually BEAI SDK, right? So we used to have this ACP SDK, and it was very unopinionated, but also it was slightly connected to the platform because of the auto registration feature, for example. But now we completely switched over to BAI SDK. Basically it's a layer on top of the A2A SDK that makes a lot of things much easier. That also forms opinion on some of the message structure, some communication. We're heavily leveraging concept of extensions in A2A that allows us to build a lot of very interesting things, like, for example, LLM service extension. So in short, think about dependency injection or inversion of control, where the as an agent builder, you can define the dependency, which is like I, as an agent builder, depend on LLM provisioning somewhere, right? And the platform would just inject the client. Actually, it's a client because the actual agent is a server. So the platform as a client would provide the API endpoint, API key, everything that is needed to actually use that LLM. And it doesn't go with the LLM. It's also the same for MCP, for example, right? It works exactly the same way, or embeddings, right? So the thing I mentioned here in the list is also platform client. It's we're saying that it simplifies API interactions, and this is exactly to solve the situation with the contexts, right? So when you want to access from your agent, when you want to access the platform API, all you need to do is just inject the platform client and all the API calls, for example, to retrieve file, store file, or retrieve embeddings. It's all going to be enriched with the authorization, with the proper authorization header, so that it's properly scoped. So that's the SDK. The goal of the SDK was also to make sure that the usage is very simple, and also mimics the previous behavior with the ACP. So yeah, I'm really curious how you guys will like it, but I think it will make a lot of things very, very simple and straightforward. Another thing that we built is separation of LLM and embedding providers. When you use the BEAI ENV setup, previously, you could only set up the LLM configuration, but now it's also possible to separate the LLM provider from actual embedding provider. Very minor optimization, but still extremely useful, specifically for RAG use cases. So what's coming next? MCP. MCP is a huge thing. We want to make sure that it's really easy and simple to use MCP in your agents, and ideally allow the end user to customize the MCP configuration so they can be injected in runtime. It plays really well with the concept of the service dependency injection service extensions. So yeah, we're planning to support the MCP functionality. Basically, think of like you add some MCP servers to the platform, and then in your agent, you mention that, hey, I would like to use MCP server that would, for example, expose these or this list of tools. And then the platform may or may not actually provide those tools to your agent, because it cannot, as mentioned previously, it can be interrupted or intercepted by the user, where user can actually select individual tools that they would like to supply with the for the agent. So that's the MCP. Obviously, the huge part of it is authentication. We just need to make sure that, like, if you're using MCP for books, for example, then you want to be able to authenticate your user to properly scope the content and everything like that. So it's also something we're working on right now. And the next thing is the support for structured slash form inputs. So your agent may request a user to fill in the form, right? Some, I don't know, like text fields, drop downs. It works really nice in the new UI. So that's another one that we're working on. And then very similar to that is also user configurable agent settings and runtime, which may seem that it's very similar, but it's mostly like the first time run setup of the agent, where you say, like, before you start the agent, you actually can provide some extra settings to the agent, like you want to enable thinking, for instance, or things like that. So something that is in progress right now. We obviously want to solve the session history as well, just to make sure you can save your conversations. And yeah, once all this is done, then there is open canvas in our pipeline. because Canvas is very important for us. And we have some prototypes of working Canvas agents, but we need to support it in a GUI in very user-friendly way. So that's another one that we would like to tackle as well. All right, so I'd like to thank all the maintainers. It's like you all done really amazing work when it comes to the rewrite to A2A, and we are also getting some external contributions. So huge kudos to all of you here. And of course, I would like to emphasize how important it is for us to, work with you guys so that you would share your use cases. For example, that's very, very important information for us to build a platform on top of real use cases. So if you have ideas, just help us prioritization with the features, and also share your use cases. This will be a tremendous help for us. You can also contribute agents if you feel like. There is still this community folder where you can build your agents. And it goes hands in hand with the use cases, because good agents serve as a good use cases as well. And also reporting feedback is also very appreciated. So thank you all. Like Sandy said, just make sure you you join our Discord if you have some more questions, and that's about it for me.
Thank you, Tomas. That was great. And like Tomas said, we really want to hear about your use cases that helps to drive some of our requirements and what is needed out there, right? So a good place to share those would be either in the GitHub discussions or and join our Discord and share it there. Great. Okay. With that, I'm going to pass it off to Michael, John Pavel, who are going to walk us through how they're using the BAI platform and framework in production.
Hi, thanks, Andy. Okay, let me share. Okay. Oh, if you don't see anything, let me know. So I'm going to talk about Granite Agent Playground with BAI, and Pavel and Young are here too, who work on this. There's a bunch of other people who work in this. They know who they are. I won't get into listing. So what is it? I'm going to talk about our online Granite-based agent that is capable of chat, reasoning, search, and research. And I'll of course go into a lot more detail about what that means. Why it's interesting in this context is that we built it, the agent, using the BAI framework. We hosted the entire thing using the BAI platform, so it's very much a kind of a production instantiation of the entire BAI ecosystem. So it's kind of interesting. So in the session today, we'll talk about the existing Granite Playground, just to give you a sense of what it is that we're working with. So there's an existing Granite Playground. It's a very simple kind of a chatbot. And what our project was to make it into an agent playground. So to give it kind of more agent capabilities. And to do that, we use me. I'm going to talk a little bit about agent architecture, which might be interesting for this audience, and we'll talk as well about some of the user experience innovations and the technical innovations there. Okay, so let me first start by just quickly showing you the Granite Playground. So this is the existing, I guess you could call it a tool or a product that we host. And the idea here is that you can come to this website. This is live. You can go there right now if you want. And you can try out the Granite 3.3 8 billion language model in a chat setting. The idea here is that you can try it out. It's very easy to use. You don't have to log in. So if you want to see how Granite works as a chatbot, you just come here and use it. And the idea here is to drive like adoption and usage of Granite language models. So it's a fairly simple chat interface. So you can ask a question, it'll give you a response here. It's about quantum computing. It also has some thinking capabilities, so I can enable thinking. It'll create some thinking tokens before it responds. There's a sample prompt library, very simple sample prompt library. And if you look down here at the bottom, it might be a little bit small, but the idea here is that you get a quota of prompts that you can use. And then once you run out of your prompts, the idea is that you'll go and get Granite and use it yourself. And this is powered by watsonx, so this is just like an interface over watsonx. So what we wanted to do was to upgrade this experience for with like a more agent style approach. So what we basically did is we rebuilt the whole thing using the BEAI platform, and we added search and research capabilities. And again, the idea is still to drive adoption of Granite, but additionally, we wanted to kind of demonstrate that Granite is capable, even the 8 billion parameter Granite is capable of doing kind of agent level capabilities. So I'm just going to, rather than trying to do a live demo, you know how that goes, I have a video demo. This is the new agent experience, which replaces the existing playground, and this is implemented with BEAI. So let me just go back to the start here. So again, it's a very similar experience here. You get your little chat box, you can do a chat. So this here, I'm going to ask about quantum computing. So this is very similar to the existing playground. And again, I can also turn on, if you look here in the bottom, we have these different modes. So there's a thinking mode, a search mode, and a research mode. So I'm just going to turn on thinking mode. And what happens here is that it will produce these thinking tokens before it responds. So it's kind of a chain of thought kind of a thing. It'll do a little thinking and it'll produce its output. So this is all kind of what was in the existing one. I think the user experience, of course, got upgraded. But where we started to add some of the more agentic style approaches is for the search, which is the next thing you'll see me do here. So you can basically turn on search mode. And what this will do is it will go and it'll figure out what you're trying to ask, and it will go and do a web search. And there's a lot of detail in the web search. I'll get into that later. But it goes out to the web, runs the search, scrapes a bunch of data on the web, puts it into a vector store, and then it'll produce an output based on that data. So it's more kind of accurate. After it's produced the output, it will generate citations. So this happens in a second pass. So it'll look through its response, it'll look through the documents and try to, link any of the claims made in the response to source documents that are found on the web. And you can navigate as well. So that's the search mode. And then the other big feature we added was research. So what I do here is I go and turn on research mode. Research mode is kind of similar if you're familiar with like GPT Researcher or these kinds of agents. It's kind of similar to search, but it's more kind of comprehensive. So it will create a research plan. It will look for sources on the web based on its research plan. And then it will do research steps before it finally creates a research report. So I'll let that just do its thing there in the background. So that's basically what we did. The BEAI side of this, all of our agents are ACP wrapped agents. So we were able to basically build a bunch of agents and they would just work with the platform because they're built with the ACP SDK. And then the actual implementation of the agents themselves, we use the BEAI frameworks. We used a lot of the features like the the chat model, the embedding model interface. Structured outputs is another thing that we use quite extensively when we were building this out. And the model, as I mentioned, is Granite 3.3 8 billion instruct, and we use watsonx as the inference provider in this case. All of this went through the BEAI framework. And then, as I mentioned, the entire system was deployed as an instance of the BEAI platform in OpenShift, and we had, we scaled it out with multiple pods. Each agent is in its own pod and all that kind of stuff. So you'll see it's producing the research report now. So that's basically how it works. So it does its research, it streams the research report, and then once it's done streaming the research report, it will again go through this process of creating citations. So I can actually fast forward a little bit, you get a sense of what. So it's done its conclusion, and then it goes back through the report and produces citations. The reason we do it like this is that we're using the Granite citation LoRa adapter, which kind of does citations as a post pass. So that's the that's the demo. I did want to talk a little bit about how the agents are implemented. Because we're using a small model, the Granite 3.38 billion, we implemented the agents as like execution graphs or workflows. Because in our experience, smaller models, if you try to do the React thing, it doesn't work so well. They kind of tend to go off the rails and do weird things and produce kind of funny outputs. So we kind of implemented the agents as essentially an execution, a chain of, it executes a chain of actions. And the key to getting this thing to kind of scale and to run quickly was to run tasks in parallel that then feed into later stages. So I do have some charts here which show you the architecture of this. Excuse me. So this is the search agent. So basically how this works is you obviously get a message history. We generate search queries. So Granite will generate a set of search queries based on the message history. We generate multiple search queries because you want to get some variety in your search. You don't want to just do one search query, because then if you're wrong, you're going to get bad results. We have a web search framework where basically given a set of queries, we'll go and do web searches. We support Google search or Tably. We have a search filtering, so the search results are filtered for quality, and also for like objectionable content or risky content. Then once we do the filtering, we go to an extraction phase where we take the search results, we do scraping of the search results, and we end up with scraped content. And these are all kind of concurrent systems that scale out depending on the number of search results and so on. And then we go into a chunking phase. This is your typical RAG style chunking where we take all of the content and we chunk it into documents, and then we take the documents and we embed the documents. Again, we use the BEAI framework here with the embedding interface to do the embeddings, which gives us a vector store, and then we pass the vector store into a RAG step. And in parallel to all of this, we also infer from the message history a RAG query, and then we execute the RAG query over the vector store to get the output. And then after this happens, we do the citations as a post-processing step. Ideally, you would generate with and produce citations at the same time, but it's challenging for a small model. And in the research, I had to kind of abstract this one, but if you want to get a sense of how the research agent works, again, we start with a message history. It's slightly different here because we do a planning step. So we ask the language model to kind of do a research plan. And then the research plan is essentially a bunch of research topics that are logically kind of associated with each other. So the plan goes to a discovery phase. The discovery phase is essentially this search step that gets executed multiple times per research topic. So you have each of the research topics that get searched, and you end up with a big vector store of content specific to all of these different topics or themes. And then the real magic happens here, where we have these research steps where they take, they do a query over the store, for a specific topic, and then they try to extract findings about that particular topic. And then those findings are passed into a report generation, and then we have our citation step. So this is how basically we implement these kind of complex processes into the agents. So with that, I'm going to hand over to Young, who will talk about the user experience, the user design.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna cover the front end work we did for the Granite Playground. I'm Young, and we also have Pavel in this call who led the front end work. These are some technical highlights of what we did. First is that we introduced a lot of custom UI components based on the BEAI platform code while maintaining consistency of the fork with the platform code. Which means instead of directly updating the platform code, we created our own components on the side. So it's easy for us to pull the latest update from the consistently updating BI platform code and pick and choose what we want to adopt. And the second one is we enabled agent switching without page reload or URL change. So I'm going to mention this again in the later slide. But simply speaking, in the initial version of BI platform, only one agent could be served per URL. So we initiated the discussion, which led to this new version where you don't need to change the URL to serve the multiple agent. And the last one is the custom agent interface. As you see, we have 4 agents here: chat, search, think, and research. Technically speaking, it's one agent that uses different tool calling, pipeline, or the parameter. But there is no way that we can send this configuration directly to the agent using the BI platform. So instead, we use the agent names to apply these different configurations. So for example, if we call the search agent, the agent will use the search pipeline, which Mike just explained. And if we call think agent, the agent will turn on the thinking parameter. And these are some UI highlights. So the first one is the agent status widget. So we created this status widget, which tells you what the agent is currently doing. For example, this one is currently searching the web, and this one is currently generating the citation. And we achieved this using the message output type generic of the ACP. And the second one is markdown-based trajectory and thinking interface. So on the current BI platform, the trajectory is a plain text and displayed line by line. And we changed this into the markdown-based paragraph, so we have more flexibility on the content that we display. And the last one is the sample prompt library, which is similar to what we currently have on the Granite Playground. As you can see here, we provide a set of sample prompts so that you can have an idea of what kind of things you can ask to this agent. So this example, we are using this code themed prompt and asking to the chat agent. Yes. So we have all these updates and what is available in the BI platform code. So we contributed back 3 items. The first one is the custom navigation items in the header and the sidebar. So the video here is not the exact version we contributed back, but simply speaking, we contributed back the way that you can provide a JSON structure to configure the menu items. And the second one is the custom base path, such as /granite/playground, as what we use on the Granite Playground. And the third one is, which I mentioned in the previous slide, we started a discussion that led to updating agent run pages so that changing the agent no longer resets the chat history. And in the future, we could possibly contribute back more. So that's all the updates we have. And we haven't officially released this new agentic playground yet, but we're going to share the updates through the BI community channels.
Thank you so much. Appreciate that, yeah. And Pavel, for your work. Okay. it's time to hand it off to Tomas D to talk about some updates in the BAI framework.
All right, so hello everyone and welcome to this. Let me share my screen to share the slides and tell you something about the updates. So first of all, we released a lot of new improvements to the framework. It's all about like streaming, agents, etc. So for instance, we improved the way we handle streaming, especially streaming for partial tool calling and for the text in general. On that note, we also improved tool calls validation. So if there is an API that doesn't support some parameter, we ensure that the error message is readable for the user and helps you to fix that. We made severe changes to the serve module. So basically we updated the MCP integration and mainly the BI platform and now like A2A integration. So we can use the serve module as you did before, and it's gonna work with the latest updates. We just released the new version that captures this BI platform like ACP to A2A transition. And something that is very important is the OpenTelemetry integration. The new version that you can read about in the observability page in our documentation now supports almost like everything what we have in the framework. It's more concise, it's faster, and it's more reliable than it was before. And there is this rack module. So now we actually added a couple of new functionalities. So there is a vector store tool, so you don't need to use the rack agent anymore, and you can use your the agent that you created and equip that with the vector store tool. And there are other functionalities for document processing and loading to the vector store database. There are other improvements. We fixed some issues in the requirement agent, so now it's even more stable. There were some updates to the handoff tool for the multi-agent communication, and we added a new adapter, Google Gemini. And there is one more thing, and that's the cost tracking. So now you can see how much you just paid for the LLM call, and it's also part of our telemetry process. So what's coming next? We are now focusing on the Runabus integration / like migration. What does it mean? So basically, if you look at the framework right now, there are a lot of concepts, many agents, etc., and they all do differ in a way how you can run them, how you can share them, how you can interconnect them. And we are about to add this unification layer that allows you to use almost everything in the framework in unified way. So it's even easier to work with that. And it's also way more easier to deploy that, to share that via our serve module. On that note, we know that our workflows that we have right now in the framework are kind of low level, and we are about to introduce a new concept called Workflow 2.0. There is an open discussion in the framework discussion page where you can share your opinion. You can see and read the whole proposal and share your thoughts. To simplify the way you work with the framework, we were thinking about adding a loader module that allows you to basically initiate and run everything in the framework by creating a YAML or JSON file that allows you to basically say, I want to initiate this with these parameters, and it's ready to go. And we also plan to integrate that with our serve module so that you can just run a single command and it's gonna spin off the server that can be integrated to the platform or to the MCP, and etc. And this all comes down to the agent consolidation, as I was talking about. So, and finally, I would like to thanks to maintainers and especially to external contributors. People are contributing not just to the Python version, but also to the TypeScript version. So I'm super happy about that. And as always, feel free to open new issues, open discussions, and just tell us what you would like to see in the framework and in the whole ecosystem. So that's about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Tomas. Big changes, both in the framework and in the platform, and of course, contributing ACP and working with A2A. So lots that went on this month. I'll open it up to some questions, and I'll give us 30 seconds or so to see if there's any questions. By the way, this 30 seconds is a new tactic I'm trying because I read somewhere that sometimes it takes 30 seconds for people to think of or feel comfortable asking a question. So if there's any open questions, I'll give it 30 seconds. And if not, I'll ask one because I have one as well. Okay, I'll ask my question because it's hard to sit here for 30 seconds. So I wanted to know, Michael, Jan, Pavel, when you were putting the BAI, both framework and platform, into production, was there any lessons learned that you'd like to share kind of with the community of people thinking of doing the same?
Have someone who's good at doing builds. The building and deploying was a challenge for us. I didn't work on that myself, so I can't get too much into the details, but maybe it's a question of building things in general at that for scale. But yeah, we had a lot of complexity in building and deploying onto OpenShift. Yeah, and I guess the other thing was that if you're working with small models, they can be reliability is a problem. I don't know if this is going to be news for anybody here, but for 8 billion parameter models, trying to get like them to perform reliably and of high quality is a challenge. And that's kind of why we went down the road of defining behavior as like an execution graph. So the agent is on Rails, basically. We would prefer if it was more autonomous, but you just don't get the reliability you need for something that you would put out on the internet. You would have people use. I think some of the highlights of using the platform. So the framework first was super useful because the chat model abstraction makes it very easy to switch out providers. So you can switch from watsonx to OpenAI endpoint to whatever you want to do. That makes it really easy to test. The embedding abstraction, again, very useful. You have the same interface, you switch out the provider, everything works. Structured outputs were incredibly useful for working with the smaller models because you can't just tell these models to produce an output in this format. It's not going to do it. It might do it once. It's not going to do it the next time. So you can either spend all your time trying to prompt engineer it, or you can just use the structured outputs. So the structured outputs in the framework, again, were super useful. In terms of the platform, I think we got a lot of value from the citations communication protocol there was super useful. So when we're building our agent, we just generate citations that adhere to the format. and it just worked. So that was very useful. Also, I would say the same with trajectories. So these are complicated things to do. The UI in general is quite complicated. So one of the real advantages that you get with the platform is that you either get a free interface that you're happy with, or you get the foundation to add to it, and it makes it very convenient. And you don't have to worry about like streaming and marshalling and processing data on both sides. It just all kind of worked for us. So yeah.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate that. Okay, if there's no other questions, and I don't see any in the chat, my 30-second thing I read didn't work. So I will go ahead and wrap up for today. Thank you everybody who joined, and for those that presented the work as well. And again, just if you have anything in the meantime, follow us on Discord, give us a star on GitHub, and that's an easy way to follow along and see feature updates live. Alrighty. Thanks all. See you next month.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.